Welcome to Ignorant Artists. Remember, ignorant don't mean stupid. Last time we were down in the margins. Knights losing to snails. Rabbits with weapons. A man playing a trumpet with parts of his body that a trumpet is not intended for. This time we're going somewhere completely different. Picture a single page. No readable words yet. Just two Greek letters, blown up so large and packed with so much pattern that scholars have spent years studying this page alone. Hidden inside, a cat, a mouse, an otter with a fish in his mouth, all woven into knots and spirals, so fine that some of them have never been fully visible to the naked eye, not even to the person who drew them. This is Book of Kells, and it's one page from a tradition that produced some of the most extraordinary objects to survive the Middle Ages. I'm Don Hudgens. This is Ignorant Artists. Today, we're talking about Celtic tradition. Now let's get into it.
Somewhere around the year 600, in the monasteries of Ireland, Scotland, and northern England, something remarkable started happening on the pages of religious manuscripts. Scribes and artists began decorating sacred texts with a style of ornament unlike anything else being produced on the European continent at the time. Historians call this style insular art, from the Latin word for island, because it developed primarily in the British Isles, somewhat apart from continental trends. It flourished roughly between 600 and 900 AD, a period sometimes lumped into what people loosely call the Dark Ages. What makes insular art instantly recognizable comes down to three things, mainly. Interlace, continuous woven-looking patterns of ribbons or cords that twist over and under each other, often with no clear beginning or end. Zoomorphic letters, initial letters that transform into animals, creatures biting their own tails or each other, their bodies twisting into the shapes of the letters themselves. And carpet pages, full pages of pure decoration, no text at all, functioning almost like a deep breath before a major section begins. If our last episode on marginalia was about scribes breaking the rules in the margins, insular art is almost the opposite impulse. It isn't breaking rules. It's an almost obsessive devotion expressed through pattern, symmetry, and repetition. The same urge to fill every available space with meaning, a completely different spirit. A handful of manuscripts define this tradition, and remarkably, several of them survive today, intact enough to study and even digitize. The Book of Kells, created around the year 800, is the most famous. It contains the four Gospels in Latin, decorated with a level of ornamentation that has no real equal anywhere else in the world from this period. It's housed today at Trinity College, Dublin, where a portion of it is on permanent public display. The Lindisfarne Gospels, created around the year 700, slightly earlier than Kells, come from the monastery of Lindisfarne on the northeast coast of England. They're known for their carpet pages and for being one of the earliest manuscripts to include an Old English translation written between the lines of the original Latin. They're held today at the British Library. The Book of Durrow, possibly the oldest of the major surviving insular gospel books, dates from the late 600s and shows the style in an earlier, somewhat simpler form. Where Kells overwhelms with ornamentation, Durrow gives you room to breathe. The same interlace vocabulary, but quieter, more spare. It's a window into how the tradition looked before it reached its peak. The manuscript spent time in County Donegal under the protection of the O'Donnell clan, before eventually coming to rest at Trinity College, Dublin, where it remains today. And the Cathach of St. Columba, a psalter traditionally associated with Columba himself, the founder of the monastery on Iona. If this tradition has to point to a beginning, this fragmentary manuscript might be it. It's held today at the Royal Irish Academy in Dublin, with its ornate carrying case, the cumhdach, on display separately at the National Museum of Ireland. What's remarkable is not just that these objects exist, but that they survived at all. Vellum is fragile, ink fades, buildings burn. And as we're about to get into, this part of the world was about to become a very dangerous place to keep valuable things in wooden buildings near the coast. Before we get into that, here's a short look at the Lindisfarne Gospels themselves.
I'm Eleanor Jackson and I'm Curator of Illuminated Manuscripts at the British Library, and I'm going to be talking about the Lindisfarne Gospels today. The Lindisfarne Gospels is an incredibly important manuscript. It was written and decorated more than 1,300 years ago. The manuscript contains the four Gospels, which are the biblical accounts of the life of Christ. The original text is in Latin, and then there's also a translation which was added in the 10th century of the Gospels into Old English, and this is the earliest surviving example of the Gospels in English. All the writing and all the decoration were done completely by hand by one individual who must have spent years and years of their life on it. And in fact, even the paints and the inks to write it with would have had to have been made completely by hand. A later inscription says that the scribe who made the manuscript was Eadfrith, Bishop of Lindisfarne. Lindisfarne, a small island on the northeast coast of England, was home to one of the most important monasteries in Britain in the early Middle Ages. There's not that much art from that period that survives, and what there is often looks every year of its age, whereas the Lindisfarne Gospels is in almost pristine condition. One of the reasons for that is because that for its entire history it has been treasured and looked after, because people have recognised that it's such an important, spectacular manuscript. The Lindisfarne Gospels was made during a period of cultural transformation. The ruling people of Northumbria were mostly descended from Germanic-speaking peoples who migrated from the North Sea coast of continental Europe in the 5th century. They initially practiced a pagan religion, but the 7th century saw the introduction of Christianity to Northumbria. Irish missionaries moved in from the northwest, while Roman missionaries came from the south. The mixing together of elements from these cultures is one of the striking features of the Lindisfarne Gospels. This page is a really good example of two of the influences coming together. It features an abstract depiction of a cross in a rectangular frame, and the inside is completely filled with patterns which are drawn from different cultures and influences. So we have this tangle of birds that go round like a maze, and these are very similar to the types of birds that you get on metalwork from early medieval England, such as Sutton Hoo or the Staffordshire Hoard. But then you also have these kind of swirling spiral and trumpet designs, and these are drawn from Irish influences. You get similar ones in Irish manuscripts and also on Irish metalwork. It might seem in today's world that multiculturalism is a new thing, but the Lindisfarne Gospels reminds us that our society has always been shaped by an ever-changing mixture of people and ideas.
If you've been watching Vikings on Netflix, this next part might look familiar. Lindisfarne is a small tidal island off the northeast coast of England, also known as Holy Island, connected to the mainland by a causeway that disappears under the sea twice a day. Around 635 AD, an Irish monk named Aidan, sent from the monastery of Iona, founded a religious community there on land granted by Oswald, King of Northumbria. Within decades, it became one of the most important centers of learning, art, and Christian mission in Northern Europe. If you visit Lindisfarne today, the ruins you'll see are from a Norman priory, built centuries after the Viking raids. The original Anglo-Saxon buildings where the Gospels were made were wooden structures. They didn't survive. What stands on Holy Island now was built on the same sacred ground, but it's not the same place the monks knew. This was the kind of place that could produce something like the Lindisfarne Gospels, a community with the resources, the skill, and the time to dedicate years to a single book. Then, in the year 793, Lindisfarne was raided. Norse seafarers attacked the monastery, and the event was recorded by contemporaries in terms of shock and horror. The scholar Alcuin of York, writing from the continent, described it as a catastrophe, a sign of divine anger. Many historians treat this raid as the symbolic start of what we now call the Viking Age in the British Isles. Here's the part that should give you a chill. The Lindisfarne Gospels were likely created decades before this raid, around the year 700. The monks who made this masterpiece were working in the same community, the same buildings that would later be devastated. The manuscript survived. It was moved for safekeeping and eventually made its way to where it rests today. But the world that produced it didn't survive in the same form. Iona itself, the mother monastery that founded Lindisfarne, was also repeatedly raided through the early 800s. Some historians believe this is part of why the Book of Kells may have been created, or at least continued at Kells in Ireland, as Iona's monks relocated inland, away from the coast, away from longships, and may have carried the project with them. These weren't just beautiful objects that started their lives in a museum case. They were made by real communities, living through real upheaval on the edge of a world that was becoming very dangerous. Here's a claim about the Book of Kells that tends to stop people in their tracks. Some of its interlaced patterns are so fine that certain areas have been described as containing roughly 8 interwoven strands per centimeter, in lines barely visible to the naked eye. And here's the detail that makes it stranger. Magnifying lenses, in any form useful for this kind of work, did not exist yet. Eyeglasses wouldn't appear in Europe for another 500 years. So however a scribe achieved this level of detail, they did it with natural eyesight, possibly aided by water-filled glass spheres or polished crystals used as crude lenses, and an amount of patience that's difficult to fully comprehend. Some scholars believe certain details in these manuscripts may only be fully visible today under modern magnification, which raises a strange possibility. The artist may have created work that even they couldn't fully see. The visual vocabulary itself comes down to a few recurring elements. Interlace, the woven ribbon patterns, often carried symbolic weight. A design with no clear beginning or end could represent eternity, or the infinite nature of God. Zoomorphic letters turn the act of writing itself into something alive. An initial letter might be formed from the body of a serpent or a bird, biting its own tail, blurring the line between text and image. And carpet pages, full pages of pure ornament with no text at all, functioned almost like a visual overture, a moment of pure pattern before a major section of scripture begins. The materials tell their own story too. Some of the pigments used came from remarkably distant sources, which tells us something about the trade networks even a remote island monastery was connected to. Preparing the vellum, mixing the inks, ruling the pages, a single page could represent weeks of work before a single letter was written. Where Kells can feel chaotic and alive, Lindisfarne's carpet pages feel ordered, almost like staring into a kaleidoscope. And the Cathacts of St. Columba, fragmentary and less visually spectacular than the others, maybe the oldest of the bunch. A direct physical link to Columba himself and to the founding of Iona, the monastery that started it all. Next time you see Celtic knotwork on a tattoo, a piece of jewelry, a logo, somewhere in the lineage of that design is a page like one of these. So where did all this go? The interlace, the zoomorphic letters, the impulse to fill every available space with pattern and meaning, none of that disappeared. It evolved. By the time you get to the Gothic manuscripts we covered in our last episode, that formal religious discipline has loosened considerably. The same urge to decorate, to fill margins, to hide small details for an attentive viewer to find, is still there. But the tone has shifted. From devotional to playful. From sacred geometry to a rabbit with a sword. The otter hidden in the Chi Rho page and the rabbit hanging a hunter from a tree are, in a strange way, related. Same impulse, different attitude, centuries apart. And the style itself never really left. Celtic knotwork shows up constantly today, in jewelry, in tattoos, in logos, and album covers and book covers. If you've seen this kind of interlace pattern recently, and you probably have, you've seen a direct descendant of the pages we've been talking about. What survives from this tradition is a tiny fraction of what once existed. Viking raids, fires, centuries of neglect, and the simple fragility of vellum and ink all took their toll. What's left, a handful of manuscripts in museums and libraries, is something close to a miracle. And it's still telling us things about faith, about obsession, and about what it means to make something so detailed that even its maker might not have been able to see all of it.
That's the Celtic tradition, knotwork, hidden creatures, and a level of obsessive detail that's honestly a little hard to wrap your head around. Next time on Ignorant Artists, we're going into the Islamic and Persian manuscript tradition. And if you like the t-shirts I wear on this show, you can find them at my Redbubble page. Also, we're working at ignorantartists.com to add a number of new affiliates. You can go shopping for art materials, pet supplies, tools, and equipment. So please take a look and go shopping. I'm Don Hudgens. This has been Ignorant Artists. Thank you for being here, and remember, ignorant don't mean stupid.